You're almost halfway done, you're not so tired, and you can finally feel the baby kicking, and you get to have the ultrasound where you really get to see the baby and find out the sex. And I had a date with Dr. DeVore and a 3D ultrasound. And it's pretty exciting. My husband took the day off from work, and we took our 2.5-year-old son Quinn with us. So I'm lying on the table, and the doctor's moving the paddle around, and the first thing he says is, "It's a boy." And I was a little disappointed. I was hoping for a girl, one of each, but okay, it'll be all right. And he moves the paddle around some more, and then he says, "Well, your placenta is too low, so I want you on restricted movement. No exercising, no sex, no extended walking, no lifting Quinn, no taking Quinn to the park." And I was a little more disappointed. I'm 2 for 2 here. And then the doctor says, "Your son has a calcium deposit on his heart, and that is a marker for Down syndrome. Do you want the amnio?" We decided to get the amnio, and Mike ushered a pretty confused Quinn out of the room. And you would think that I would remember a needle this big, but I do not remember the amnio at all. What I do remember is paying the nurse extra money for the fish test so that we could find out in 24 hours. And I remember walking out of the waiting room, looking at all the pregnant women, thinking, wow, this is their lucky day, because I just took the odds of bad news for everybody in this room. We got the call the next afternoon that, yes, our baby had tested positive for trisomy 21. And I said, "Oh, thank you," and hung up the phone. And then I started screaming, and I couldn't stop. When you find out that your child is going to have a disability, it's a pretty big grieving process. Retarded, special needs, cognitively delayed, disabled, different. I lost a child that day. I lost the baby I thought I was going to have. I lost the life I thought I was going to have. And most importantly, I lost the sibling that I had so pictured for Quinn. And I was so wrong. As the weeks went by, I was very depressed. I could not connect with this baby inside me at all. And one morning I woke up and I thought, you know what, I have to name him so that I can start bonding with him. Now, Mike and I hadn't talked about names at all. We had so many other things to process, but I had this name that just kept sticking in my head. So I called Mike at work and said, "Hi, I'd like to name the baby right now." He's like, "Okay, what's his name?" I said, "Well, I know that his name is Gideon Michael." And God bless Mike, he rolled with it and said, "Okay, that's his name." About 2 weeks later, we're sitting in church, and I am totally not paying attention. The pastor's reading this Bible passage, and I'm not, blah, 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 Israelites, blah, 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 Midianites, blah, 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 Gideon. Gideon. I said to Mike, "Did he say Gideon?" And Mike nodded. Now, I've been to church most of my life, but I've never heard a sermon on Gideon. So I'm going to give you the tweeted version. The Israelites were at war with the Midianites and getting slaughtered. And God comes down to Gideon and he says, "You're going to lead my people to victory." And Gideon says, "Me? How?" And God says, "Well, I want you to take the Israelite army of 22,000 men, and I want you to reduce it all the way down to 300. And Gideon says, "How can I possibly win with less?" And God says, "Trust me, just do it." So he did. And the Israelites were victorious. Now the pastor really had my attention now, and this is what he said. He said, God gave Gideon less. God gave Gideon a disadvantage. But because God was with him, he overcame anyway. There are about 5,000 people that go to their church, and there's not a doubt in my mind that on that Sunday, at that service, with that sermon, it was just for us. So disadvantaged, less, maybe, but I was pretty sure the message was, with a little faith, it wasn't going to matter. When you get the diagnosis of Down syndrome, they don't really give you any positive information. It's a list of negative adjectives that try and describe this baby you haven't even met yet. And in the beginning, all I could think of were these negative descriptions instead of this vibrant little boy that Gideon is growing into. When Gideon was 2, his first full sentence was, "Ma, I love you, Ma." He's 3.5 now, and he knows his shapes, his colors, all the animals and the sounds that they make. He has more ASL signs than I do, and these past 2 weeks he has been determined to learn the alphabet, both sign and spoken, and he is 95% there. My favorite thing that Gideon does is when I pick him up from school, I'm the only mom that gets cheered. When he walks out that door, he sees me and goes, "Ma, yay, Ma!" And Gideon and Quinn, they adore each other. The other night, I let them sleep together for the first time, and the ridiculous noises coming out of that room were heartwarming. So these are the words that really describe him. Silly, practical jokester, affectionate, loving, and smart. 9 out of 10 babies diagnosed with Down syndrome in utero are aborted. It's 90%. And I have been in that black hole when that decision needs to be made. But here's the thing. Every child, teenager, and adult that I have the privilege of getting to know with Down syndrome love their life. And they live it with this enthusiasm and determination that is unmatched by any typical person that I know. And I think that is the measure of a life worth living. So my Gideon, the little boy that God gave blessed to, well, he overcomes again and again, and he does it with the brightest smile and the lovingest heart I have ever experienced.